House of Cain, Book 1, Den of the Wolves, a novel by StoryMan-Jack. Chapter 2, Episode 1, The Rogue. Bring it on, fur-ass. Charlene Harris from Dead to Worse. I sat in the passenger seat of the Trans Am and brooded. I've been bonded or mated or whatever the hell that meant to a powerful she from the summer court. They just attached themselves to me. The question was why? For what? Control? Then there was Angel. I couldn't let her go. I couldn't let myself forget her. And now this. Some fucking joke? Mated to a she, a non-human. It hurt my heart. It burned. It was all I could do to keep tears from forming in my eyes. This one understands. It's not what Jackson Cain believes it to be, though. This one had no more choice than he. This one is here to help the Cain. Why do you call me that? I asked the little fox sitting in the back seat. Mac looked over at me. Who are you talking to? He asked. I jabbed a thumb back toward the back of the vehicle. The kitsune, I said. What? It talks? He asked. When I didn't answer right away, he added, Look, I don't remember much and I'd rather not talk about it. But I do remember you getting angry and that this fox thing appearing on the table. I sighed again. Can you communicate with anyone other than myself? I asked the kitsune. A disembodied voice spoke. This one will speak to the old one, if Cain wishes. I do, I said, my frustration getting the better of me. And why do you keep calling me that? Old one, Mac asked, insulted. This one is having trouble with the speech of this land. This one means of the old clan, of the first people. Are you not? The kitsune asked. Mac grunted. The Cain is just that, the Cain. The last and of the first line, the last of the firstborn of Adam, the house of Cain, as prophecy foretells. Just call me Jackson, I told her, until I figure out how to get us out of this mess anyway. What do you prefer to be called? This one may be called Kit, the being said. This one is afraid there is no way to reverse the bonding. It is for life, and like the Jackson, this one is immortal. No, I wouldn't accept it. I couldn't. If I was the last, it was prophesied that my child, the unborn son or daughter, who I had no chance to see or celebrate, was destined for death before it was even born? No, I would not accept that. Mac started laughing, and I glared at him. Look, this isn't funny, Mac. Yeah, it is. You're basically married to a canine. And he said, that's some funny shit, dude. He tapped the car's dash. Kit, remember? I'll trade you mine for yours, I said, then took a deep breath. He at least brought me back out of it. This one is not a dog, an indignant voice stated angrily. Just let it go, both of you, I said. Mac nodded. Your backpack is in the back seat. We have to get to that warehouse. Yeah, the rogue, I said. This one wonders, what is rogue? Kit asked. Rogue werewolf. I have to put it down. I reached in the back for my backpack and noted that there was an entire case of bottled water on the floor. A plan formed in my mind. Can I have a few bottles of water? I asked Mac. Sure, that's what it's there for. I change it out every few days so it should be fresh. This one is impressed that one of the old clan thinks to have emergency articles. Mac looked in the mirror as I downed the first 20-ounce bottle and opened another. Call me Mac, Kit, he said. Mac, she said, trying the word. This is not a traditional name for the first peoples. It's complicated, Max said. Hey, if you were that thirsty, Jackson, you should have said something. I smirked. Well, you know, I opened a fourth bottle. The plan was I made it on the fly, but it would do. It would do. It would get the monster out of hiding, out of his lair. And if it was a rogue, it would have little, if any, self-control. Werewolves are basically rage monsters. Think Hulk, except real. When we get there, Mac, just hang back. I can't be saving everybody. This one will do her part, Kit said. I turned in the seat. You will ya? For what price? Jackson. Max started to admonish, but Kit interrupted him. The Jackson Cain does not understand. We are bonded. There is no obligation to those we are mated with, Kit responded. Max snorted. It really isn't that funny, Mac, I scowled, the entire situation growing my anger again. He nodded and pulled into the large area surrounded by several warehouses and parks. He pointed at the building just 40 yards in front of us. That's the old packing plant Hormel used to own. Most of these places are empty now that the stockyards have become nothing more than a tourist trap. It's in there? I asked. Mac nodded. That's what reports we have. It's already killed 4 people. Kit, just watch my back. I don't need other wolves coming out of the darkness to hit me while I'm occupied, I told the kitsune. If I had to deal with her, she could at least be helpful. This one will do as the Cain requests, Kit replied. Does the Jackson feel the corruption of the others in the darkness? I shook my head. No. What good is a trap if you aren't there to ensure that it gets your prey? I just figure they're there. What? Mac asked. This is a trap. I thought you knew. I've got silver bullets, Mac replied. Unless they're hollow and filled with liquid silver, won't do us much good. No? It's all I got. I can at least annoy them enough to cover you if necessary. I nodded at him. It wasn't a bad idea after all. Okay, but stay back in the shadows. They could be here just to watch and study how I'll handle this. It's what I do. It's what I would do. This one agrees, Kit piped in. Always it is preferable to study one's enemy before fighting him blind. Sun Tzu would say. She looked at Mac. Has Mac forgotten how to dream? As his ancestors has? Mac shook his head, his discomfort serving him right for making light of my situation. I opened the car door and got out. My bladder was about ready to explode. So as casually as I could, I walked toward the warehouse and stopped before the steel door that had been broken and laid to the side. I unzipped and began to urinate right in the doorway, spraying the liquid all across the front of the warehouse. The angry growl came from far back in the darkness almost immediately. A word of advice. When fighting any creature, never let it pick the battleground, and never fight any monster in their home. Pissing just outside its claimed home would be a challenge on the order of trying to burn down a redneck's house or taking his wife. Finishing, I stepped back about halfway to the car and waited with my kukri knives in my hands. I was going to have to replace them soon. They were wearing thin. I couldn't keep etching silver into the steel. I saw Kit's small form waiting crouched next to the car. Kitsune had sprouted several more tails, 9 of them to be accurate. And what little I knew of her kind, that meant she was old, very old and very powerful. I suppose Lilith did call her the second daughter. I mean, she was a princess in the Feylands. Though I didn't know much about them, her fur was bristling as she watched the night, sniffing the air. A black mass flew out the door of the warehouse. It was a werewolf, but something had gone horribly wrong for the poor bastard. Wolves must be guided by a pack leader, an alpha, on their first transformation, for it came from corruption, And corruption is likely to kill as it would to help change. Mastering the change is what they call it. This transformation didn't finish. The man still looked human. His face had elongated, but no fur appeared. His arms were twisted and hands clawed, but they looked as if they were bent and unnatural. The rags left on it were torn and shredded. Jeez, it was a poor homeless guy. Probably mentally ill before this began. Those fucking bastards. I cursed as it loped at me. Instead of waiting for the lumbering form to get close, I ran at it. When I fight, I let go. I can't think. I let my muscles and body react. I don't want to think. If I do, I'll freeze and die. The best fighters in the world do not have a plan or think about how to fight. They just do. They react. Therefore, they practice almost constantly and get the crap beat out of them over and over. In point of fact, that's the one thing that eventually made sense to me about how my father had trained me. If you get beat over and over again, you learn how to take a hit. Of course, if you don't die, that is. But if you can learn to take a beating, you have an advantage. And your opponent is not usually as fearless. I jumped just as the beast was within 5 feet of me and twisted over the creature's stooped frame. I tried to plant my blade into its skull and end it quickly, but it jerked away and only drew my left-handed blade a shallow gash along the creature's shoulder. It hurt him, and he howled, but I could feel the pain and fear coming through that almost human voice. Without a pause, I ran back at the beast and slid between its legs, cutting both of its thighs on the inside as I slid beneath. I just wasn't fast enough. Whoever the man was behind the creature had to have been smart at one time. It spun as I went under it, anticipating the movement, and ignoring its pain, it grabbed me by the head. Now, when I say it grabbed me by the head, I mean that the monster palmed my head like Jordan would do in order to palm a basketball. The deformed and clawed hand covered my entire face and I could scarcely breathe. Flailing at the creature with my knives, I sliced into its arm, but the rage in the thing's eyes told me that it could no longer feel the pain I was doing to it. I had to land a mortal blow. It was then that I heard 2 shots fire in the night. The wolf released me and howled again, but it wasn't howling at Mac for firing his guns. It was howling at the kitsune with 9 tails, who stood upon the beast's head, raking all 4 clawed paws all over it. I looked around to find Mac standing by the car, crouched and watching. There was no sign of any other werewolves or a pack, but I knew they had to be out there. I wonder what they're waiting for. My mind was divided and distracted me. Soon, it was my turn to howl, as the creature clamped its jaws upon my right shoulder. I felt the bone snap as the vice grip jaw muscles clamped down upon me. Fortunately, it was a mistake that I needed the thing to make. I shoved the knife in my left hand through the beast's throat, taking the searing pain as my shoulder wrenched when the beast fell, his jaws remaining locked upon my shoulder. The fire in that wound was severe, so severe I'd forgotten that there might have been other wolves, and Mac ran up to help pry the thing's half-formed jaws from my body. Where are the others? I groaned. Go on, Kit said in my mind. The corruption left once this beast bit here. Damn, Max said, ripping the shirt from my wound. This is bad, Jackson. He stopped, his face horrified. Wait, are you infected now? He asked. I groaned. It doesn't work that way. It has to be an alpha to do that. This thing wasn't even going to survive the night. If we hadn't killed it, it would have died on its own due to the change. This one wonders why the Cain would put himself at risk if the beast would have died anyway. She looked at Mac. The Jackson cannot become, what is the word you used? Infected. Mac looked at her. Because it would have killed people tonight. Jackson just saved however many people that would have been. And if he only even saved one, that's more than enough in my book. I pointed at Mac. Yeah, that. I grimaced, sitting up, holding my left hand to what was left of my shirt wadded up on the wound. Plus, I fucking hate werewolves. I looked Kit in the eyes for the first time and noted that unlike a fox, her eyes were as deep green as my own one. I'm pissed off. This one is confused. Why do you care about random mortals? Kit asked, her tone genuinely curious. Hey, I'm a random mortal, Max said. Kitsune tilted her head. No, you're of the old clans, of the first people. You are not like other mortals. Why do you keep saying that, Mac asked. The Mac. Do you not live in the dream? Kit asked. Mac looked at her quizzically. What are you talking about? I stood and the fire in my shoulder increased. Can we talk about this later? I need to get home and figure out what's going on. If this wasn't a trap, I need to know what's going to happen. Kneeling, I placed my hand on the head of the poor bastard. That had been used as nothing more than a pawn. I didn't even understand why they just watched and left. But I began to pray, closing my eyes. May peace find thee. May God take thee into his hands and give thee comfort that was unfound in the end. Kit licked my hand as I started to remove it from the beast's deformed form. This one has hope for her, Jackson. I felt lightheaded. Drop us off at my place, then bring Dragomir back in the morning. Mac nodded his head and led me to the car. Don't get blood on the seats. That's custom leather, he told me. I am impressed by your concern, I told him. You'll be more than impressed if you get blood on my pop's leather seats, Mac said, slamming the door. This concludes the first episode of Chapter 2, Rogue. The next episode, titled The Dream, will conclude Chapter 2. Thank you. This is StoryMan-Jack, and we hope you've enjoyed this program. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And please, most importantly, tell me, good or bad, what you thought about the video. We cannot grow as artists if we can't accept criticism. Again, thank you, and remember, your story is the most important story you will ever tell, so let's make it a great one. Have a great day.